In this video, I want to create a few additional functions that will allow us to have more functionality when using them on our linked list. So we'll create 3 new functions that will give us some ability to change things and add things and get some information from a linked list. So the first function will be the getLink function, which will be a node which will have a node pointer return type, and will take in an integer index value. The next function will return a value at an index. This function will have an integer return type and will take in an integer index value. Finally, the function that will return the number of items in a linked list, which is the same as the length of the linked list. And this function will have an integer return type, and we'll call it getLength, and it doesn't have any parameters. And that's it for the public section of the class. And for the public section of our class, and for the private section, we'll create another node pointer function, which we'll call getLink1. We'll take in an integer index value and a node pointer. That's it for the header file. For the LinkedList.ccp file, we'll define the functions. The function that will return the link to the node at an index. The function getLink takes in an integer index value. For this function, we will only call the getLink1 function, passing in the index and the head node pointer. Now defining the function getLink1, which takes in an integer index value and a node pointer. This function will do the actual returning of the link for the node at an index. So we'll first create a counter variable called x and a temporary node pointer, which we will use to end a pointer. So we'll create a node pointer called c, an integer x, which will be our counter, and we'll set it equal to 1. The first thing we want to check is if the index value is valid. So if the index is less than 1, or the index value is greater than the size of the linked list plus 1, that means that the index value is outside the range of the linked list. So we want to print out the statement invalid index value, and then we want to return null. But if the index value is valid, we will have a while loop that will check if our counter variable is equal to the index value we are looking for. So we'll set the c pointer equal to the pointer ptr, and we'll increment our counter variable and advance the pointer ptr to point to the next node. And when we find the node at our index, we want to return the next pointer pointed by c. We want to return the c. We want to return c's next pointer. The function that will return the value at an index of a node. The getValue function takes in an integer index value, and for this function we want to create an int variable called value, and we'll set it equal to the getLink function, which takes in an index and returns a pointer. And from that pointer we want to access the data variable, and we want to set it equal to the value variable, and we want to return that variable. Finally, the function that will return the number of items in a linked list, which is the same as the length of the linked list. And this should be the easiest of the functions, because the getLength function doesn't take any parameters, and we only want to return the size of the linked list. So going on to the main function, the main.ccp file, where we'll actually test the function that we just created. We will call the first function on our linked list, the getValue function, passing in the index value 4. So we want to see out a statement printing out that we are printing or getting the value at an index 4 for this example. And then because this returns an integer, we want to see out that the return value, and then we compile and run our code and to see if we have any errors. And we don't have any errors, so we can run the executable file, and we see that we get the value that we expected. We printed out C6, which is the value at index 4. So now we need to we check the second function. So we'll print out getting the number of items in the linked list. So now we will be calling the getLength function, and we'll check if there are any errors. We'll compile the code and run the executable file, and you will see that we don't get any output because this function returns an integer. So we will see out the return value from this function, and we will once again compile and run the code and run the executable file, and get that the number of items in the linked list is 7, and indeed we have 7 items in the linked list. So that's it for this file, and that's it for these functions.